few days, really asking us if we were going to be recording this so it could be shared with, municipal elected officials, any other board members, or anybody that wasn't able to attend today. So just a heads up, but we will be recording this webinar. We'll also get a copy of the slides out to everyone. So wanted to make sure and mention that really quick. Now, as Austin mentioned, retail is evolving. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in 2018 before we get started talking about ICSC. But I think it's very important to know, what's happening in the retail industry. If you watch, CNN, Fox News, any of these, a lot of times it sounds like it is the retail apocalypse happening. You might have heard that term used before. But in the reality of things, retail is still expanding. Restaurants are expanding. They're just evolving. They're having to expand in different ways. They're having to focus on different ways to reach their customers. So I want to talk about a little bit about that. But real quick here, as mentioned, the consumer preferences are continuing to evolve. We've got kind of a chart up here right now, and it kind of it compares the online shopper versus the in-store shopper. And what's interesting about this is you're seeing a younger population for the online shoppers. So the typical online shopper is that 18 to 34-year-old age, makes up about 49% of that, 75,000 or more. Very, very interesting data. It's interesting to compare the online shopper versus the in-store shopper. But 78% of consumers are shopping in stores either the same or more than they were a year ago. So we're seeing that continual evolving. We're seeing people spend more money online, but we're also seeing people shop in stores there. But more importantly, the younger generation. So that's the millennials, which is really that 18 to 34 age group, and then Generation Z. They're actually starting to visit stores more. So it's not the retail apocalypse. It's not the online store sales are not going away, or the brick and mortar store sales are not going away. It's not all focused on online. It's finding a happy medium between the two. A good example I point to is, if brick and mortar stores were going away, Amazon would not be getting in the brick and mortar business. Amazon purchased Whole Foods recently. Amazon is opening some Amazon bookstores, and they've also got a Amazon Go convenience store that I actually visited one a couple of weeks ago in Seattle. So to me, your number one online retailer, Amazon, getting into the brick and mortar game should be a good sign that brick and mortar retail is not going away. But right now, and just to kind of wrap up this slide, the most impactful innovations are those that are transforming but not replacing the physical retail experience. If you're like me, if you're like a lot of consumers, you still want to be able to go into the store, kind of feel and experience the items before you buy those. So not all doom and gloom as we talked about.
Aaron, if I could interject something right quick and to elaborate on that point, innovation is a key word in 2018, and we've all heard over the last year or two, the way bricks and mortar retail are really attempting to compete with online sales is making shopping an experience. Or experience retail, and we're seeing that happen with a number of national brands. Patagonia, for example, they offer free yoga classes, sewing workshops. They have in-store discussions on certain issues. Whole Foods, you mentioned a little bit earlier, Aaron. They've got the 365 concept, which is a smaller grocery store concept that's really targeting the millennials. They have tattoo shops, clothing, so they're, the more successful retailers that are really on the front edge of this being able to compete with online sales, they're being innovative. They're doing things different. Urban Outfitters is another example. They purchased a pizza chain for certain stores. So, they're going to be selling pizza while you're shopping. So innovation's key. And these retailers expanding beyond maybe their core business, just like Whole Foods offering clothing, tattoo shops within their stores. These additional goods don't have to be complementary. They don't have to be, women's shoe stores offering, costume jewelry. That's a complementary type item. What the retailers are looking at is, what does it take for us to register a sale? So they're looking at really these innovative ways to add different merchandise mixes to their stores in order to get the customer in there, number one, but number two, to get them to come back to the store.
Great. And Kelly, just to kind of emphasize that a little bit more, some of the ones that we're seeing do this right now and kind of bringing in other retailers and just, technology advances, those sort of things is something that's going to be key going forward. Some of the ones that are doing that right now, Kohl's is one. Amazon is actually having little pop-up shops inside Kohl's stores now. So Amazon is becoming part of, the Kohl's retail landscape. And also, I don't know if you've read about it, but Aldi, so the more neighborhood type grocery store, is also partnering with Kohl's in a number of stores. So doesn't necessarily have to be complementary like you talked about, Kelly, but technology is really is kind of leading the innovation, I guess, as it relates to retail. But I thought this was interesting. 70% of consumers say technology has made it easier than ever to take their business elsewhere. So, one of the things that we see in the retail industry is showrooming. Maybe you're at Best Buy and you want to see if you can find it online cheaper, those sort of things. Those are some of the things that these retailers are having to compete with. Now, you are seeing some like Walmart and other stores do online pickup. Some of them, they'll give you a discount if you do the online store pickup and do that. So it's going to be interesting as we move forward to see really this retail reinvention, this transformation, and I think technology is going to drive a lot of that.
Yeah, I believe in 2017, online sales accounted for roughly, I've read anywhere between 12 to 14% of all U.S. retail sales, and again, that's projected to continue to increase, and really, based on some things that I've read, really kind of top out in that 20 to 25% range. But I know we're here to talk about how you are going to be able to approach and to be successful in speaking to national brands at Recon. But just one takeaway for this: we're talking about carrying multiple items in a store that do not have to be complementary. Keep this in mind. It works for local merchants as well. So when you go back, come back from Recon, and some of the things that you hear at Recon do apply to your local retailers in your market. Again, they can expand beyond what their core business is, and again, have a better opportunity to get the consumer in the store and then get them back into the store.
Absolutely. One of the other kind of trends we're seeing right now is really these brick and mortar makeovers. So one of the trends, as you see online sales go up, typically you'll see, and what we're seeing right now is the physical store sizes going down. So a good example would be somebody like Target. I mentioned I was in Seattle recently, went into one of the Target Express stores or City Targets, and it's a smaller Target concept. Sephora Studios, another one. They're focused more on beauty consultations and services. It's a new small format, more of a neighborhood type concept. And then Kelly, you mentioned it already, but 365 by Whole Foods is another concept. So we're going to continue to see these brick and mortar makeovers. Kohl's announced that they're shrinking the size of many of their stores. So bottom line, 75% of customers still want to see a product in store before they're purchasing. So brick and mortar retail not going away. It's evolving. Again, we'll bring up evolving because that's going to be a trend over the next few years.
Aaron, I heard an interview last night with the CEO of Kohl's that you bring them up, and they're very bullish on expansion, and their mode of expansion's changed. They're going into strip centers, and many of their units now are freestanding. They just do not see the benefit any longer of being in a mall site, but they are very bullish. And some of the things that you mentioned it's definitely part of their 2018 program, as well as their future programs.
Absolutely. And just kind of one of the last slides here that's talking about kind of some of the trends is kind of the last mile, retail stores as fulfillment centers. This is one of the main drivers that we're seeing in the industry right now. You're seeing these big box retailers become more of fulfillment centers. You're actually seeing that with the grocery stores as well, offering store pickup or curbside service there. Macy's is a good example. Macy's is building in more warehouse space in their stores so that you can actually buy something online and pick it up there. So less retail space, more warehouse space. And then we're seeing a lot of retailers that are partnering with delivery companies. So good example, Walgreens and FedEx, their partnership that they have where you can actually buy something, have it delivered to you. So those are going to be some of the other key trends we see moving forward here.
Right. And so, guys, I think the big picture when we look at, what does 2018 shape up to be for retailers, and then how that ultimately leads to where communities are looking and targeting retailers, we're really seeing the evolution of primarily big box retail, right? So that retail apocalypse is more of the shift from larger big box traditional retail to smaller, more nimble store formats. We're seeing the integration of the online aspect, but it's not taking place of physical retail. It's more so complementing it. And then from there, we're seeing that last fulfillment as well as that kind of merging of online and offline shopping to create those experiences in store. Any other trends you see before we move on, or anything that you guys want to throw in there that people should be looking for 2018?
No, just to emphasize what you said, I mean, as a municipality, really pay attention to these trends, really pay attention to, what's happening in the industry so that you can kind of mold and form your recruitment strategy for your community around what the trends are. So just pay attention to it. We'll probably be talking next year, and there'll be quite a few additional changes and things happening, but really pay attention to that as you move forward and try to recruit retailers and restaurants.
I'll mention this, Austin, if I can, please. Going back to the retail apocalypse and everything that we tend to read being somewhat negative about the bricks and mortar national brand retail. The gentleman who is the CEO of Kohl's said last night, said, yes, absolutely, there's been a lot of store closings. He said a majority of the closings have been around and in mall locations. He said not all, but a majority of them have. So, that again brings us to a trend that we are seeing is that the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s malls are really going through a transition. And you have to ask yourself, going forward beyond 2018, is the mall in your community still a retail property? Some are changing uses. Many are losing their anchors. And who are you going to backfill in a vacant J.C. Penney or a vacant Sears? And there's not a roster to choose from. So, I think one of the trends that we're seeing again is the evolution of the traditional mall. Many are becoming, strip locations that are well located. It's called demalling. So there's a number of things that you need to pay attention to as a leader in your community if you do have an aging mall that is going through a transition.
Absolutely. And just to really kind of finish up talking about 2018 so we can jump into ICS. I want to talk to you really quickly about new store openings and what we're expecting in 2018. So you'll notice towards the top of this list here, this is new store openings in 2018. We're still seeing a lot of those discount retailers. So those Dollar Generals of the world, the Aldis, those discount retailers are really expanding rapidly. Dollar General, 900 new stores in 2018. That's almost 3 a day, maybe a little less than 3 a day. Pretty pretty big there as far as expansion goes. Aldi is another one, so more of the neighborhood type grocery stores. We're seeing those expand. Five Below is another. Everything is $5 and below there. But we're also seeing a lot of what we call those junior box retailers. So the Ultas of the world, maybe a 15 to 20,000 square feet retailer, Hobby Lobby, a 50,000 square foot retailer, both expanding rapidly as well. And then just a little bit towards the bottom, we're also seeing Nordstrom Rack, and we're seeing some others as well that aren't on this list. But Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Ross, again, that junior box retailers are starting to expand pretty regularly and pretty rapidly right now. So expect some new store openings in 2018. I do think we're going to continue to hear about some store closings. We all heard last week about Toys R Us closing stores. And, you know, I'll be honest, Toys R Us, Sears, some of these that were at Kmart that we're hearing are closing stores. We've known about these. We've thought this was going to happen for 5 to 10 years. So it was just a matter of time as far as those, but as far as that went. But really, outlook looks good for 2018. We're also going to see restaurant growth take place pretty rapidly in 2018.
Great. So transitioning from 2018 and new retailer store openings, let's start talking about how to get the most out of Recon. Kelly and Aaron, I'll let you guys take it from here, but you know, building on our experience, these are kind of the top tips that we give to communities that want to know, hey, if I'm going to invest in going to Las Vegas to ICSC Recon, what do I need to do to get the most out of it? What do we need to take with us? What things do we need to do while we're there? So guys, I'd love for you to walk us through that list and just tell us what we need to do to get the most out of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So ICSC Recon, that's the largest retail real estate convention in the world. Takes place every year in Las Vegas. Kelly mentioned already he's been going out there since '85. I've attended 10 plus years out there, so we have a pretty good feel for what to expect when you get out there. I will tell you, it's very important not to just go, just to say, hey, we're going to go to ICSC, we're going to see what's going to happen. You have got to have a plan. You've got to have a strategy. You've got to have your days planned out so you're ready to go. You know, the first kind of tip we have for you is to know the layouts. And, you know, I've attended, and Kelly, I know you have as well, conferences throughout the country, not only retail related, but other types of conferences as well. And I've never been to one that took over really 3 halls, upstairs and downstairs. So I think it's important that you really understand, you know, the layout here. So real quick, 3 different halls. You've got the North Hall, the Central Hall, and the South Hall. And then you've got the South Hall connector that connects Central Hall to the South Halls. So really important. A lot of the retailers, a lot of the developers will be in that South Hall, but they'll also be in the Central Hall and North Hall as well. So you need to plan on spending as much time in each hall as possible.
Yeah, and that's a new thing this year. They're starting to expand the retailers a little bit beyond what they have over the last few years, and there will be a presence of some retailers in the North Hall.
Absolutely. I know we had quite a few meetings with Starbucks last year in that North Hall. So, and there were some other retailers as well. So make sure you're not forgetting about the North Hall. Just like Kelly said, I want to emphasize that this year. You know, number 2, set realistic goals. I'm a big believer in setting goals, but also managing expectations. You're attending this conference not to make a deal. Don't go out there expecting to make a deal, but go out there planning to meet people and make connections so that down the road you can follow up and maybe make a deal later on. Make sure you attend all social functions. It's important to be there during the conference. But a lot of these really good relationships and a lot of these that are made during these social functions with the brokers, the developers, and the retailers. So make sure you attend all social functions. And then also, I think it's important to attend educational seminars. As a municipality, there are quite a few of these panels where you're getting to hear from leading executives of these retailers, of these developers, and kind of what their plans are, what they're seeing, what they're expecting. So make sure you're also attending educational seminars. If you are having council members or an economic development board member with you, again, I just want to emphasize to manage expectations, so that you're not going out there expecting to make a deal. You're planning to go out there to make relationships and build relationships.
And Aaron, I know that's that's a bit of good information for those who have never attended. My first meeting last year with a gentleman from a Tennessee community said he was there on behalf of his council to get Starbucks to come to their community, and he fully expected to leave Recon having a Starbucks deal in place. You know, as Aaron said, go out there, make the contacts, get business cards, make the introduction, and then come home and work the project. You're not going to make a deal out there in May. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. You know, I want to emphasize as well, you need to know your market. If you're going to go out there, you're going to be talking to a lot, like I said, these leading executives of these retailers, these restaurants, these developers, and site selectors, and they're a lot of times you get 5 minutes to pitch your community, if that long. So you need to know your market. You need to know, you know, what are the demographics of the trade area? How large is our trade area? You need to know what retailers are in the market. You need to know what sites are available, what vacancies are there. What are the planned developments? What are those strengths and weaknesses over your competing communities? These are things you need to know. Then I'll emphasize real quick, updated data. Big mistake that I see a lot of municipalities make is they'll take with them 2010 data, or they'll take with them 2016 data. Make sure you've got 2018 data to take with you. All of your marketing materials that you're going to leave and handouts, anything that you leave with the retailer needs to have 2018 data on it. You've got to know, again, that opportunity in your community. So you need that updated data as it relates to your retail trade area. If I'm a retailer, I'm a developer, I really don't care that much about the size of your community or your community population. What I'm more interested in is knowing how large is your retail trade area. So if you don't have a retail trade area defined already, that would be something that you do have time to get ready before ICSC. You know, only being about 2 months out, you do have time for that. Cell phone data is one way to do that. So we have the ability now to look at cell phones and track basically consumers to your community to determine those trade areas. So if you don't have a cell phone analysis, you don't have that trade area ready to go yet, I would reach out to us or ask us questions about that. We'll help you with that. And then also pay attention to your gap analysis or leakage analysis. Retailers want to know, is there enough opportunity for me to open a store in your community? And what a gap analysis or a leakage analysis does is gets you that information, but more importantly, gets it to the retailers to show them that, yes, they could open a store in your community and they could be successful.
And I think the core purpose of all those when we talk to client communities is, you know, you've got a limited time frame to be able to present an opportunity in your community to a retailer. And Kelly, I know you like to use the 3 minutes or less mantra, right? So have marketing materials and have data ready that are simple and easy to understand, that really highlight the opportunity and kind of know your audience. What do you guys encourage people to do in terms of marketing materials, right? So I know one of the challenges people have is we got all this data. Now, what do we do with this data? How do we make it impactful for the community and for specific retailers?
You know, again, I've been on both sides. I've been to Recon as a real estate broker. I've been there as a consultant through the retail coach, but I've also been there when I worked and did site selection on a national basis for a national retailer. So I know what these retailers and these restaurants need, and something quick and simple is much more effective in getting their attention than trying to give them too much information. Again, you're trying to get them to remember you and remember your community. And you can do that in a very simplistic way without giving them too much information. You know, these marketing materials are key, but keep it quick and keep it simple.
And Kelly and Aaron, we talk about marketing materials. How important is it to have community marketing materials and then also to have some site specific materials? I know a lot of times we talk to retailers that They may have some quick interest in the community, and their next question is, hey, what sites do you have available? How important is it to balance both of those between marketing the community and an opportunity at a specific site?
Well, as a economic developer, or as a city manager, or a board member that's making the investment to go Recon, as Aaron said a little bit earlier, you need to be prepared. You need to know your market. You need to know your competing markets. You need to know what retailers and restaurants are in your market. All of that is information that is absolutely necessary. Also, if you've got key sites in your market that you're trying to present to retailers and restaurants, have information on them. And again, it's the more information you have, the better off you are if your conversation was to lead beyond the introduction and the quick points about your community. So, be prepared. But again, manage your expectations. Not everyone is going to ask you about specific sites within your community, but if they do, you need to be prepared to discuss them.
And really, just to kind of emphasize what you said there, also having sites really helps speed up the recruitment process. So instead of a real estate rep having to first go to your community to look for sites, if you're getting them sites immediately and you're getting that, it speeds up that overall recruitment process. But, another important thing is to really take an iPad with you. If you have an iPad or some kind of tablet, I'm a big fan of that. That when you're meeting with these retailers or meeting with these restaurants, these developers, having an iPad or even a laptop to where you can pull up an aerial map if you need to. You can zoom to a specific site, I think is very important. The other thing that this gives you the ability to do is instead of having to load up with marketing materials, being able to email those directly to the developer, have them in their inbox before your meeting's over or right after your meeting's over is important. So I would recommend, if you don't have one or if you already have one, bring it with you, an iPad or some kind of tablet that you have the ability to do these things with.
Yeah, I want to echo that point. Is you're there to make an introduction to your community, to the retailer. So, follow up immediately. If you have a good meeting with them, then at the end of the day, or before, send them an email and say, thanks for the meeting. Here's the information I promised you. Don't go home, wait for it. Don't have to get somebody to assemble it for you. Then things get a little bit muddy because too much time passes. If you're prepared and you have it at your fingertips on an iPad, you're more likely to respond quickly, and that keeps the conversation going.
Absolutely. And just to emphasize your point on the earlier slide about keeping it simple, what we recommend is having a one-page community marketing flyer. So you've got the trade area information, you've got the demographics, you've got your one point of contact at the EDC or the city that you work with to contact. You've got a traffic counts, you've got the current demographics. Make sure you have a one-page community marketing flyer. We're putting these together for a lot of our municipality clients. So if you have questions on what that should look like or something like that, reach out to Kelly or myself after this call and we'll help you with that. But keep it simple. Basically, it just provides the basic information the retailer is looking for, and then you can always follow up with more information. Mentioned this in the opening, but know your approach, know your strategy. You can't just go out there expecting to be able to walk up and talk to a retailer. You've got to structure your day. Typically, the retailers and the developers at their booth are very busy towards the mornings on Monday and Tuesday. So maybe the afternoon is the better time to walk up to a booth and talk to them. What we recommend is attending the workshops and the sessions early, and then visit the leasing mall, which is the retailer and developer areas in the afternoon. Target and meet retailers that fit your community. If you're a town of 2,000, you don't have an interstate, Bass Pro Shops is probably not a good booth to stop by and talk to. But there are some retailers that are. So make sure you target retailers that fit, and then sell your community first, and then sell those sites we talked about. the overall goal in this process is, can we get the retailer, can we get the site selector, can we get the developer to the community? So in every one of your meetings, invite the retailers to visit your community. That is absolutely key. If you can get the retailer, you can get the developer, the community, there's a lot higher chance of a deal taking place. But meet with retail brokers that are active in your area. So a lot of retailers use brokers. A lot of times they're the gatekeepers for the retailers. So make sure that you're meeting with brokers in your area as well. And then also meet with developers. Right now, a lot of what we're seeing in the retail industry is developer driven. So focus your ICSC recruitment strategy on three things: retailers, developers, and brokers.
Aaron, this next slide brings up a question that we got from an attendee, and that's to research retailers' minimum standards or site requirements before going. And the question we got that ties into that is, to make the most of our time, how can we identify ahead of time which restaurants, et cetera, are building corporate stores and do not franchise opportunities? We're not looking for franchises. We're looking for corporate stores or restaurants. How can we identify some of those targets before heading out to Las Vegas?
Yeah, well, first off, you can look on these retailers' websites. A lot of times, these retailers on their websites or these restaurants, they'll have a real estate tab or a franchising tab on their website. They'll actually list out what their site requirements are. What is the size of the store? Are they looking for an inline space, or are they looking for a pad site? So that's the first place to look. Also, if you're already signed up for ICSC, that means that you're a member of ICSC. So you actually can go to the ICSC website. Some of that information is available there on the website. But you can also reach out to us if you have questions. If you're trying to figure out the size or what the minimum requirements of a retailer is looking for, we've got a database where we track that information. But those are, Kelly, anything else to add? Those are probably the three best places to look for that information, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. And again, use us as a resource. And I will say this, there's no more important slide in this webinar than the one that you're seeing right now. Do your homework on the upfront before you go there. Aaron mentioned set up meetings in advance, but set up meetings with the retailers and restaurants that fit your community, as Aaron mentioned. Don't waste anyone's time. I mentioned that in 1985, when I started going to the real estate convention, you didn't see economic developers or municipalities. Now you're seeing more and more and more participation by them. And many times they go there really not knowing what their trade areas are, not knowing what the demographic profile of that trade area is. But more importantly, they don't know what the site location criteria is for the retailers that they're talking to. So they're wasting the retailer's time as well as their time. So, be a little bit more scientific on it and do your research and set up the meetings with those retailers that fit. Just because you want them in the community is not necessarily meaning that they're a fit for your community.
And just to reinforce the piece about data earlier, really identify retailers that fit your community by looking at that gap analysis and make sure that you're going to fill an identified gap, right? You want to go out there knowing that you're going to be targeting retailers that actually make sense for your community and that financially your community can support. You don't want to go out and talk to retailers or even restaurants or franchises if they're already oversaturated in your market. And one other thing, Aaron and Kelly, I know you can speak to this, but you can actually look at the retailers that are attending the conference beforehand. Most of them have already signed up well in advance, so it should be a pretty complete list. But I'd certainly encourage you, and I know Aaron and Kelly would too. Go look at those retailers and map them out beforehand to really see, okay, who do we need in our community, and how can we go target them while we're out at Recon? So, Kelly, you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's one of the most important and probably least focused on things, but really the importance of the follow through. How important is it for communities to follow through after Recon?
Well, again, I mean, it's part of the sales process. You're going out there to sell your community first. And then if you have the opportunity to sell specific sites within your community. So it's very simple. You're out there selling. So if you respond to their inquiries immediately or in very, very short order, it puts you in a better position. So, don't make the investment to go out there, attend a meeting or attend a new numbers of meetings without having the ability to follow up quickly. Again, I've worn different hats when I've been to Recon through the years, and it does make a difference that you respond quickly.
And is there a balance between being persistent and being annoying?
Well, yeah, that's part of the sales process, and as a salesperson, you've got to know where that line is, and you try not to cross it that many times. But again, you're out there selling on behalf of your community, on behalf of your board, or on behalf of your council. So you're out there to make a concerted effort to get someone interested in your community. So I've always felt like you don't want to be just an absolute pest, but you do want to err on the side of being aggressive.
One of the things that we tell our clients all the time is to have a reason to follow up. So just like Kelly said, you want to stay in front of these retailers, but hey, we just got 2018 data in. Hey, a new site became available that fits your criteria. Always have a reason to follow up with the retailers, the restaurants, and developers. I think that's a key thing to say here. You want to have a reason. Don't just follow up to follow up, but actually have a reason to follow up. And I think you'll get better responses from the prospects if you do it that way.
Great. So we're gonna jump into Q&A, and I'll be asking Kelly and Aaron some of your questions. But I want to highlight before we do that, we have a new series that we're putting out called Ask the Retail Coach. And there's a page on our website under the resources section. If you go to theretailcoach.net, there's a link on the screen. It's just theretailcoach.net/ask the retail coach, or you can find it under the resources section on our website. But each week, a member of our team is going to be answering questions that we get from client communities, brokers, developers, retailers. We're going to be taking some of those common questions we get and providing answers to it, much like we do with webinars, but it'll be in video format. So we would encourage you, if you have questions about retail development or Recon or retail recruitment, visit that webpage and see if we either haven't already answered that question. We'll have videos on that page answering questions, or if there's something that you could ask that might help other people, we'd love to answer that question too. But Aaron and Kelly, jumping into questions, one of the questions we got was, hey guys, we've been to Recon for a couple of years now. We've never really had a game plan. We've just tried to talk to as many retailers as possible, but haven't really seen any real results from that. Do you have any suggestions on anything we could do differently this year, either in how we target people or how we approach the conference that we may not have done in years past?
Well, I think some of the tips we talked about here already kind of fit that mold. But I think, again, it goes back to managing expectations. I think you have to understand what your goals are out of the conference. I think, you just have to go in there understanding that you're not making a deal. But, I think if you do structure your day, I think if you have a team that's going out there and you can split up, maybe half of the team focuses on South Hall. The other half team focuses on North Hall for part of the conference. I think you'll see results. I think if you really do target the retailers and restaurants that fit your community, there should be no question that you have some level of follow-up with these retailers, these restaurants. So I would say to just emphasize that you're focusing on those retailers, those developers that are really expanding in your region. Try to look for those retailers and restaurants that are doing deals in your competing communities, in your region. And I think there will be no question that you'll have success out there. But make sure, like we talked about, structure your day, focus it that way. And I think there's no way that you can't have a level of success.
Great. Next question is, I'm a one-person team, but I'll have multiple members of our economic development and city council, economic development board and city council with us. What can I do to give them a taste of Recon, but also make sure they're not in the way? Should I take them to retailer meetings? How should I manage their time so I can be productive and not have to stay around them the whole time?
Well, I'll address that, Austin. I do think, to a degree, participation by council members and board members at these meetings is key. I mean, you want them to feel that you would really like to have them located in your community. I would also say and warn about this is have one voice. If you're the economic developer or the city manager or the one person that manages the shop, you be the voice for the community and have the others there in a supportive role. And make sure that everybody knows what their roles are. So they're not monopolizing the brief conversation that you're going to have where it's absolutely not going to be productive. I think if you have people with you, make sure they fully understand their roles and they're not there trying to monopolize your brief time that you have with the retailer, restaurant, or developer.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Kelly, I would really try to limit the amount of council members, economic development board members, people that you have in these meetings with these retailers. You don't want to bombard them. If you're familiar with the way the setup is, if you're at ICSC and you're going to a retailer's booth to meet with them, typically they only have 2 or 3 chairs set up at a table. So I would just stress not to have more than 2 or 3 people in a meeting with a retailer, because once you get more than that, it really can get overwhelming for the retailer or the developer, and it's really overkill. So like you said, Kelly, just emphasize, have one voice, maybe have 1 or 2 other people with you, but I would not go further than that.
And I would say this too, Aaron, divide and conquer. We have great friends and a past client that we worked with for 5+ years that they take their entire board out there, and each board member has their own requirements of who to meet with, and they hold them to it. It's not a social event. They're out there to work. So each board member has a roster of retailers and restaurants they are to meet with. Again, you're more successful when you divide your group up and allow them to go out on behalf of your community to visit with these targeted retailers and restaurants.
Great. Next question. So we're in a small rural community and consequently don't have any real commercial broker activity. Would you recommend that we focus on developers and/or identify brokers who would work with targeted retailers?
Well, I'll say I would focus on both. I would still, chances are, even if you're a rural community, what I would do is probably reach out to the closest large kind of metropolitan area. Because if there's a broker, even within 50, 60 miles of you in a metro area, I'd reach out to them, because chances are they're working those areas out there as well. So I would continue to focus on both. I would look for developers, local developers, regional developers that do deals in the size of communities that you are. But I would also start reaching out to those brokers that are in those metro areas, in the region.
Yeah, Aaron, that happened to me last week. I had a Dallas broker contact me about a community that we had worked in, probably 130 miles, 140 miles away. The community wanted this brokerage firm to assist them in leasing their mall, and so we were kind of quizzing each other about the opportunities there. And again, that's how the game's played. Don't assume anything. Call these brokers, even though they're 130, 145 miles away, and just see if there's interest in bringing retail to the community.
So a follow-up question to that, for first-time attendees who don't already have contacts with retailers or brokers, how do you actually set up a meeting ahead of time?
Well, I think you hit on it. Identify, go to the ICSC website, see who's attending from the retailer, and then reach out to them with an email. Monday and Tuesday is typically the main days of ICSC. Sunday is more of kind of, they have a reception. Not a lot happens on Sunday. There's a couple of educational seminars. And then Wednesday is a half day typically, and it's good to just be able to walk up on Wednesday and talk to booths. But reach out to the retailers, send them an email within the next couple of weeks about setting up a meeting, give them a little background on your community, and honestly just ask them if they have time to meet. And many of them will tell you no, but you will get some that will say yes. So send an email initially, and then you can follow up with a phone call as you get closer to the conference.
Great. Well, guys, we're pushing up towards 11 o'clock, so I think we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up. But Kelly, Aaron, are there any final thoughts you want to leave with people as they're starting to prepare for Recon and get ready to go out there?
Well, Aaron, if I could offer this sort of as a closing comment, you know, and you touched on it. We've talked primarily about the need to speak with retailers and restaurants, but don't overlook the opportunity to visit with developers as well. Find the developers that are active in your region, and set a time to go by and introduce yourself. And I think that's really, really important. I had a client in my office yesterday, and you know, and we've had some success in getting some retailers interested in the market, but we need a developer to go out and execute a retail development so we can work with him to put these retailers that we have identified in there. So developers are very important to this entire equation. Depending on what the dynamics of your community depends on if you really need to focus on developers as well as retailers and restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. And just a couple of closing comments for me. There's still time. You know, we've got a little bit less than 2 months until the conference. So if you don't have 2018 demographics, if you don't have that one-page flyer ready to go, reach out to myself or Kelly. Our emails are on the screen. We can help you get prepared for that. There's still a little bit of time to make that happen. So keep that in mind, and you know, just go out there. Like I said, manage your expectations, structure your time out there, and I think you'll have success. So if anything else comes up or you have questions with us, let us know, and we'll be happy to respond to those. We'll likely do another webinar like this a little bit closer to May, till the actual show. So if you thought this was helpful, if you have some council members or economic development members, board members you want to join this, we'll keep you in the loop with that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we will get a copy of the slides and also a recording of this presentation out to everyone. So again, thank you for joining us. If there's any other questions, let us know. Send us an email or give us a call, and we'd love to help you.
Great. And I'd just like to reemphasize, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to Kelly and Aaron directly, or feel free to drop on our website and fill out the Ask the Retail Coach form, and we'll be submitting those videos pretty quickly. So feel free to reach out to us. Thanks for joining. We hope you're super successful at Recon, and we'll talk to you soon. So thanks, Aaron and Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.